Cycle Update.
No matter what happens, you got to respect the fight. CryptoTalk.fm, my name is Leicester. I'm your host. We finally have another update on Manny the Rug Puller, aka Manpreet Kohli, aka Manny the Hitman from what was formerly Saitama, Cited Chain, and the scam syndicate that was. He, of course, was getting chased down, locked up. He's in prison, and then he was out on bail. And then, of course, they've been chasing him, they meaning the United States, all this time. We're now, to refresh where we are, Russ, cult leader, took a plea deal. He admitted his guilt and admitted he was scamming people. Max Hernandez, the guy, incompetent numbnuts that was supposed to be doing the mask, he admitted his guilt, took a plea deal. Damn, Tran's on the run in Vietnam. We actually have information about what Tran's doing. We're going to be sharing that information with this episode as well, because I thought it was very interesting. But the bottom line is that Tran, after he went on the run, allegedly, he became a real estate agent. So he's now ripping people off in the home sales. But I have reason to believe, and information that gives me reason to believe, that after he went on the run, went on the lam, did nam, that rhymes, he allegedly became a real estate agent pitching commercial properties. I think it's commercial. It's either commercial or like high-rise apartments. I don't have a lot of details because there was an ad that featured him. We'll show what that is, but he's no longer featured on the property. It seems like he's not with the company he was with at the time. And then when I correlate the dates, it seems to correlate to after he went on the run. So I don't know exactly what's happening. If it's like he went on the run and then his company found out what the hell was going on and then he had to quit or get fired. I don't know the deets. I'm saying that it looked like Tran went on to become a real estate agent after he went on the run, but he was one of two of the big bosses of the scam syndicate that was, the other one being Manny the Rug Puller, aka Manpreet Singh Kohli. A case was filed earlier in November 7th, as it was, out in Massachusetts. Massachusetts, of course, is kind of the origin of all of these different suits that they were going after people, because there were people that were based out of Massachusetts. Now, Manny the Rug Puller had, from my understanding, had never been in the United States outside of travel, occasional travel, that he had never lived in the United States. He was in the UK. I saw his house. It didn't really impress me, but I saw his house that he ran some other business out of as well. And then part of this case that I was reading, I was very fascinated with what it's saying. I am curious why it took so damn long, but I'm fascinated by what it says. I'm going to summarize what it's talking about. Bottom line is he's asking for them to dismiss the case against him. And there's a number of different things he says. But it all boils down to formalities and I think the rush to judgment in the initial indictment that the United States government put out. That's what they're kind of hooking into. So number one, they're saying, as was the case before, and I think it was earlier this year, he put out a thing that says, look, you don't have a case here. I'm a UK citizen. I didn't do anything in the United States to rip anybody off. Now, of course, we know that was not true. He did rip off U.S. citizens because, of course, they did the failed November 13th Vegas event, and he was part of that, and he was part of Saitama at the time. You don't have to be a U.S. citizen to get called up on the lam for ripping off U.S. citizens. If you live abroad, you can be called up on the lam for ripping off United States citizens. And maybe Manny the Rug Puller didn't understand that, but that's the reason why they hooked him in, is because he was associated with the org. The org was formed in the United States. He was a known employee of said firm, and then all the stuff that came from Telescam. He's saying, though, that I was in the UK. I didn't do anything United States citizens, so he's reiterating that point. But then he went a little bit further, and some of this stuff kind of fascinated me a little bit, just a little bit. Number one, he said he was calling about the fact that the United States, I did coverage where it said they think that he was going to run. He's going to take off. We need to lock him. We need to extradite him now because he's going to run, take off. Part of this one is to said, look, this is a BS case. He didn't say that. I'm saying that. It's a BS case. They're saying I'm going to take off and run. Run from where? I'm in the UK. I live in the UK. There's nowhere to run. I didn't go anywhere other than where I already was. So they're saying the indictment is making it seem like he's a fugitive when, according to him, he's not a fugitive because he never left the place he already lived. So this is kind of one of those formalities. What it's saying is The government is throwing all these terms out there. This is the whole crux of this. The government's throwing all these terms and words out there that you can't substantiate, and that's the reason we should dismiss the case, because your case is faulty as presented. Everything you're trying to do against this guy is faulty. Nothing is true of it. So then it goes further into the legalities, and it starts to really kind of piece back. I talked about the whole money transmission. The government loves that. They love money transmission. They love wire fraud. They love all these terms out there. They're criticizing this indictment, this motion to dismiss, rather. They're criticizing what's said in that case file where it said, how can it be a money transmission business when we didn't transmit any money? The Saitama token, by your own admission, so I'm summarizing what they're saying. The Saitama token, by your own admission, is a security, and that is in the initial indictment that they straight said Saitama is a security. He's saying, okay, if Saitama's a security, that means it can't be money, right? So where's the money transmission? There's no money transmission. Then they cite a case around Bitcoin, and they had called Bitcoin not a security, and because it was used to buy and sell, it can be classified as money. He's saying in this dismiss motion, there was no Bitcoin in play. There was nothing close to money transmitted. Thus, there is no violation of any money transmission, and there was no performance of money transmission as a business. So that's also faulty in what you said. Then he talked about wire fraud. He said wire fraud, again, is 100% money. There was no wire involved in any of this. There was no money communication. So how can you say a wire can't move cryptocurrency? It only moves fiat. There is no fiat that was moved that you can prove. He talked about how there was you can't prove other than $100 purchase from Manny the Rug Puller. You can't prove that anything that he transmitted had any sort of financial stake. Some of the numbers that were thrown out there, like in the 5 digits and such, they're saying you can't prove any of that stuff. You're going off of a valuation that did not actually correlate to the fiat. It correlated to whatever would have been the assumed value of the Saitama token if they had sold it. Not necessarily did this. And then he calls out, you didn't specify when you said exchange. So one of the things they said, Tran, is that I said hold, and then he was dumping. And they said in this one, you didn't specify what kind of exchange that was. Was it a licensed centralized exchange? Was it a DeFi exchange? And by your own burden, you have to be specific about the kind of exchange where this took place. You can't just say they went to an exchange and sold. You can't do that because that means my client can't defend himself. He can't defend a non-fact. There might have been some sort of transition to an exchange, but if it was an unlicensed centralized exchange, there's no legality there. You can't prove that, in this case, Manny the Rug Puller, the lawyer's saying, you can't prove that he did anything other than a $100 purchase. He talked about this lawyer. You're citing this text message. This was at the beginning with VFam, where they were talking about how to rip people off with the stuff. And there was a quote from Manny the Rug Puller that basically says the U.S. is difficult to deal with or something. And the indictment was hooked on that, saying, oh, you're going to duck smoke is what you're going to do. You're going to try to duck us. So we're going to hook on that. And we're going to use and add you to this indictment too. Dude, the ZM Quant and Gotbit and all these other consulting firms that were wash trading the token. This attorney in this motion to dismiss is saying you can't prove that my client had anything to do with those things. It was likely Russ, so he's throwing Russ under the bus, that rhymes, and Tran, who's on the run. They can't get anything out of Nam because he's on the run. Now, this one I'm going to pause. Throwing Russ under the bus, I think, is brilliant because Russ is already in jail. So and Russ took a plea deal, okay, but he's in jail. So now the government, in theory, if they're smart about it, would go and have the conversation with Russ. And they would say, okay, you took a plea deal on this one, so you're admitting guilt, so we got that. What was Manny the Rug Puller's involvement here? Did he do X, Y, Z? What's going on there? Because if there was such a thing, Russ would have to have evidence of this shit, right? So the government, this is why I'm fascinated by this motion to dismiss, because if anybody was going to have evidence to take Manny the Rug Puller down, it would have to be Russ, cult leader, because he was right in the lead of this shit. Why wouldn't Russ have dropped a dime on the dude? If there was a plea deal, did Russ give over all the information that he would have had? Or was it just a plea saying, please, I didn't do anything wrong and I served in the Navy and I'm da-da-da? Or do you say, look, I got dirt on this dude or these two dudes. Let's make a deal. You know how cult leader was. He was a coke fiend. He was, he's drugged out. He didn't know what the fuck he's. So I'm saying the government should go back to cult leader and ask the question. Okay, this is what's being stated. Do you have any evidence that contradicts what he's saying? He's saying he didn't do shit. He's saying you did it, Russ. Now Russ looks shady because he was in front of all that stuff, right? He was the face of this business to the point people online were trying to take Russ down. And I said, I think Russ was a mark. I think people set him up to fail. Manny the rug puller saying, no, Russ was in charge. Russ was the front and Nam Tran. Nam Tran's nowhere to be. Well, we know where he is, but they can't go after him. That leaves Russ. You got Russ. Go talk to him and figure out what the fuck's going on here. Because is it true? I'm asking, is it true that Russ cult leader was really the decision maker and he was the one that was pulling off the scam, but the plea deal allowed him to basically do an end run around justice? This has opened up that can. That's what this doc's doing. That's why I was fascinated by what it's saying. The other thing it says is, well, you don't have enough information in this document, your own document, for us to defend against. You're just putting generic terms that don't mean anything. You're calling something a security just because you say it is with no evidence of why it is. They did cite in that original indictment where they got the decision. And remember, this is the Gary Gensler era where he's like, that's security, that's security. And there was nothing really, it's in the law. That was just what that is. My guess is the reason this came out this timing is because of the Trump administration and the theory that they might be sympathetic to what's said, especially because if it's true that we're trying to separate what is a security versus what's not, and they can hook their hat on that and say, this was just Saitama token. Saitama token might have been traded and exchanged. You called it a security, but you didn't say why. You didn't give us enough to defend against it. And now your current administration has questioned what really is a security. So that's open gate. And by your own statutes and precedent, you basically said Bitcoin's money because you could buy and sell. There's no Bitcoin transition here. You said Ethereum is a security. Okay. Then you said it's not a security. I'm saying, folks, that I am fascinated. That's all I'm saying with this being filed. What are my thoughts on it? Do I think it's going to go anywhere? It's possible because of the current administration. In the prior administration, this would get tossed. In the current administration, there might be something here, especially because, again, the original indictment did make a lot of statements. It just said it. This is what it is. This is what it is. The last, and I thought it was funny, the original indictment made mention of the fact of taxation. Said, if you're doing this stuff, you're ducking taxes too. Coley, his lawyer, their rebuttal is he's a UK citizen. He doesn't owe taxes to you. The thing is, he might owe taxes. I'll tell you how that works and how stupid it is. There are certain statutes that allow for taxation based on where you are. Let's say you're employed, where you conduct business. Saitama was formed as an LLC. Because it's formed as an LLC, and because Coley was an employee of said LLC, there is a case inside the way the IRS and even state, the way they work is they'll say, well, it's where you work. The reason that this was stupid and has been stupid is remote work, right? People can work from anywhere, but your employer, wherever their HQ happens to be, is where you get nailed on taxation. Or if you have, regional officers or something, they'll nail you on taxation on that. That's what the original indictment was hooking on, is to say, this is an LLC. It's in the United States. You were an employee. We say you owe taxes. Coley is saying, I'm a UK citizen. I've never lived in the United States. I've never been a citizen of the United States. Thus, I'm not subject to your taxation law. That part of it, of this motion, is the most fascinating because I want to see what happens if it gets overturned, number one. Number two, what is going to be that response to that narrative? Because that has the opportunity to completely upend the way that the IRS has behaved in the past. And in the current administration, they have shown at least a desire to rethink the way the IRS works. Folks, it might be getting interesting with the Saitama scam syndicate. It might be getting really interesting. We have to wait and see what's going to happen. I'll keep you up to date as I learn stuff. But for now, Manny the rug puller is continuing the fight, and I've got nothing but respect for that. And Nam Tran, he's just ripping people off in a different way, apparently.